Hello there. So today we're going to talk about the digestive system and quite possibly one of my favorite hobbies, eating. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I love food. So let's talk about how food actually becomes energy. Well, it's not how food becomes energy in our bodies. That would be our metabolism. That would be things like glycolysis, citric acid cycle, electron transport. But we're going to talk about how the food that we eat travels through our body and gets broken down or digested into smaller molecules that are absorbed. Now, one of the things I want to bring up right now is the term digestion. What does digestion mean? In anatomy and physiology, digestion means the breakdown of biological molecules or larger molecules. So you'll start with a really big molecule, like say a complex carbohydrate, like starch, something that you'll have in oatmeal, let's say. And that'll be broken down into individual molecules of glucose through the process of digestion, okay? So let's start with talking about what the digestive system is and then briefly go over the enzymes and the absorptive mechanisms that allow us to take that food in and turn it into energy and even become part of ourselves. I mean, part of the whole idea of you are what you eat, that is true, but you are what you absorb from what you eat. So let's talk about how all that happens. So the digestive system starts with the GI tract or the alimentary canal. The alimentary canal is just kind of the formal term for GI tract. The GI tract starts with your mouth and ends with the anus. And so it's somewhere around 29 to 30 feet long, depending, of course, on how tall you are. It's involved in digestion, of course. Oops, let's get our colors going. Digestion, which again is that chemical breakdown of food. Absorption, which is exactly what it sounds like, the absorption of food, and the metabolism of nutrients. So when we say metabolism of nutrients, it's going to be, that metabolism is, for example, going to be like converting amino acids into ATP energy. Not just glucose can be turned into energy. We can make ATP energy from glucose very easily. That's the easiest thing that we can make energy from. But our bodies can also make ATP energy from protein and fat. Actually, fat metabolism is really easy for our body too. It just doesn't seem like it, right? Okay, so the digestive system includes its main organs and the accessory organs. The main organs that we think about are the mouth, the pharynx, the back of the throat, the esophagus, which is the tube through which food goes down. The esophagus is adjacent to the, remember what we talked about in the last chapter, the trachea. The stomach, of course, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, and the anal canal, ending in the anus. So these organs are all the main organs that are involved in bringing food in, taking food out, or what's left over of the food, the waste products, and areas where digestion and absorption occur. Now, the accessory organs are called accessory organs because we really can go without these. We can still absorb and digest and absorb food without these. It's just the accessory organs make it easier for your body. So teeth, of course, it's easier to absorb food if you break it down into smaller pieces through chewing. The tongue moves the food around in your mouth. Salivary glands, a huge, huge accessory organ. Salivary glands make two different types of saliva. One of those two types actually makes an enzyme that fights bacteria, so that's a good thing. And the other type of saliva is involved in digestion because that type of saliva has an enzyme called salivary amylase. And amylase, it's A-M-A-L-Y-S-E, amylase, right? Amylase breaks down or digests carbohydrates. So let's say you've eaten oatmeal. Oatmeal is a great complex carbohydrate. As you're eating oatmeal and just chewing it in your mouth without sugar, if you were to eat just dry oatmeal, it'll taste like, dry, boring oatmeal. But the longer you keep chewing it without swallowing it, it'll actually start tasting sweet because you're breaking the complex carbohydrate, the starch. So let's say each one of these little circles is a glucose molecule. And each line is a covalent bond between each one of the glucose molecules. As you keep chewing this, you'll start breaking or hydrolyzing these bonds so that you have individual glucoses, which you can actually taste. So the salivary glands are super important in digestion of carbohydrates, all right? The gallbladder stores bile, which helps what we call emulsify fats, which we'll get to later. The pancreas, which makes digestive enzymes. Pancreatic juices include things like lipase, an enzyme that breaks down fats. Amylase as well, actually. There's a pancreatic amylase that works in your digestive tract, as well as proteases. Proteases break down proteins. We also have the veriform appendix. Veriform appendix, what does that do? That actually does a whole lot of nothing in humans. So here is a list of all the digestive organs, both the main digestive organs and the accessory organs in our body. Starting out with parotid gland, which is a type of salivary gland, the submandibular gland, the sublingual gland, the tongue, the pharynx. They didn't include the teeth in this one, don't know why. The trachea, they're just pointing out in this figure that the trachea is anterior to the esophagus. So the trachea comes first, and then behind it, posterior to the trachea, is the esophagus, which extends down through the thoracic cavity down into the abdominal cavity. The esophagus ends in the stomach. The stomach, which we'll talk about in a little bit, then empties into the duodenum, which is the primary section of the small intestine. The duodenum then goes into the small intestine. We'll talk about that, the ileum, which then eventually comes around to the ileocecal valve, which will dump into the large intestine or the colon, which then goes up. That's the ascending colon. We have the hepatic flexure, which is the turn. A flexure means a turn. The turn here by the liver, which is hepatic, okay? So then you have the transverse colon, then you have the splenic flexure again for a turn, next to the spleen, hence splenic flexure, right? The descending colon, the sigmoid colon, and then the rectum and anal canal. The veriform appendix is at the junction of the ileum and the cecum here. In terms of other digestive organs, we have the liver here. There are several lobes of the liver, a couple lobes. Excuse me, the liver produces bile that is stored in the gallbladder. There is a gallbladder or bile duct that empties into the stomach, which is this big pink thing here. Behind the pink thing is the pancreas. So they're kind of showing the pancreas as a shadow behind the stomach, but just so that you're aware, the stomach is anterior to the pancreas, all right? They just wanted you to be able to see that the pancreas is, you can see a little piece of the pancreas as the duodenum turns and laces itself underneath the pancreas. And then the spleen is also behind the pancreas here. Each one of these organs, it'd be good to know their names or these identifiers here, because this is the kind of thing that might show up as a picture to identify in your quiz. Oh my gosh, I almost said squid. No, your quiz. Hello, this isn't marine biology. Okay, let's start with the mouth. The roof of the mouth is formed by the hard palate, and so those are the maxillary and palatine bones. Remember studying the skull? Here you go. Understanding and knowing those bone names are going to become super important now that you're hitting all the rest of the body. Good job, you guys. You got that down. So the hard palate is the roof of the mouth. The soft palate is the section behind, I guess you would say, posterior to the hard palate. And that's a series of muscles that come close to the pharynx. So it's basically the back part of your mouth that, as you yawn, lifts up. And there it is. Oh, I said the magic word, yawn. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to get over this. The uvula is the little dangly thing that you see looking back in your throat. We'll get a picture of this. And then the uvula is actually itself a downward projection of the soft palate. Now, the floor of the mouth is formed by the tongue and all the muscles associated with the tongue. The tongue itself, or lingua, right, is a bunch of basically muscles. The tongue itself has papilla. We'll look at a picture of this in a minute. The papilla are these small zigzags, these elevations that look kind of like this. And the papilla exist on the mucosa, which means that is a tissue that makes mucus, right, of the tongue. Within the papilla, you'll find taste buds. we'll look at that in a minute. The lingual frenulum is the kind of the bottom thing. As you pick up your tongue, it's a little tissue. We'll see a picture of that in a minute that holds your tongue down, actually. There are folds and membranes that help anchor the tongue to the floor of the mouth and hold it in place. So here is the mouth cavity. Here's the top of the mouth, the roof of the mouth. Here are the teeth, of course. The hard palate, the soft palate, ending down here in the dangly uvula. We have the palatine tonsils that are visible when you open your mouth, and that's why the doctors oftentimes say, open your mouth, say ah, so they can see the palatine tonsils. Here's the tongue, the upper and the lower lip. The philtrum up here is the little bow tie on the top of your lip. If we look at the bottom underside of the tongue, you can see the lingual frenulum right here, the little piece of tissue that holds on to the tongue. The lingual vein, you could see, some people you could see this on easier than others. I'm not going to ask you to identify that on the quiz. We do have sublingual glands here underneath the skin and sublingual ducts. These produce mucus for, you know, not necessarily for digestion, but just to maintain moisture in the mouth. Teeth themselves come in different numbers depending on how old you are. We'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of teeth, we have a few different names. We have incisors, cuspids, bicuspids, and tricuspids. In younger children, there are 20 teeth. These are the baby teeth or the temporary teeth. And at the average age of about 6 months, people start getting, or babies start getting their teeth. And they usually have all their teeth by about 2 to 2.5 years. As we get older, starting at about 6 years old, our baby teeth start, or maybe even 5, baby teeth start falling out and adult teeth start coming in, so that by the time we're 17 to 24 years old, depending on who you are, we end up with 32 teeth as our permanent teeth. And so each tooth itself has a typical and anatomical structure. It has a crown, a neck, and a root. So let's look at that. So here are, they call them the deciduous teeth, the baby teeth. So you'll see that the baby teeth from the top and the lower jaw here. They number the teeth, dentists number the teeth from 1 to, in this case, 1 to 20, or 20, well, some babies are born actually with more than 20 teeth. We're not going to go there. But basically what we're looking at is the teeth in babies, the eruption in terms of how old the babies are in months. The front teeth start earliest, 6 to 8 months, and then extending all the way out to 22 to 30 months are the last tricuspids or molars. As we get older, the adult teeth, between 7 and 8 years old, the incisors come out first, 7 to 10. You know, we have more lateral eruptions of adult teeth, and then extending all the way back to 24 years old, third molar or the wisdom teeth come out. Most people do have their wisdom teeth removed because the wisdom teeth oftentimes don't completely erupt and they become infected or impacted as we get older. Some people are born without them, though. It's kind of different, depends on who you are. So in terms of tooth anatomy, the tooth is a living organ, okay? The tooth itself does have a blood supply, so you'll see the vasculature coming into the root. So this is the root of the tooth down here and down here. Teeth are lodged into bone, so here's the bone tissue. The bone has periodontal ligaments holding the teeth in place. The periodontal ligaments in young children break down to allow the release of the baby teeth when children lose their teeth. Adjacent to the periodontal ligaments is a protein called cementin. Cementin is what the ligament holds onto between the bone. There's a little bit of cementin over here, adjacent to the periodontal membrane, holding in, allowing the tooth to be held in with the ligament. So the cementin and the ligament have a tight link together. Right here, this dentin is a protein that keeps teeth strong, and on the outside is enamel. This is the strongest, one of the strongest proteins made in the body. The top part is the crown. The middle part between the crown and the bone is the neck, and the root is all underneath underneath the tooth into the bone. Sorry about that. Apparently some folks just got home. See you in the next video.